in Mountain Time. It's 11:05, and thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn. We are going to get started right now. This month's topic is tips for executive team meetings. Very important meeting, probably the most important meeting in the company, so certainly something we should pay attention to. A couple of housekeeping items as we get started. You should know that everybody is muted, so don't worry if you are having your lunch now and are eating. That won't interrupt anyone. And also, if you're on the website, web joining us, then hopefully you'll be sending in some chats. We're going to make this pretty interactive as we're going through, and know that your chats are going directly to me. They are private, so don't worry about what you put in there. There's no such thing as a question that isn't relevant. So we're going to get started right now. At the end of the conference, I will have my contact information there, so you can capture that if you want to send me a follow-up. I'll also take questions privately afterwards if you want, and something spurs your thoughts. Just press #3 at the end or send me a chat, and we'll get going with that. So let's jump into things. We've got a pretty full agenda today. We want to talk about executive meetings, give you talk about some of the different challenges. As I'm going through this now, why don't you send me a chat just as we're getting started. Let me know what your role is in the company and what your purpose here today is. Are you a executive yourself and looking for ways to bring your meetings to the next level, or do you participate? Let me know, and that can be helpful. We'll try to tune things to your particular scenarios. We'll talk about planning ahead of time for the meetings, what type of structures work well, how to put together an effective agenda. Want to talk just about conflict management, because sometimes it does come up, believe it or not, appropriate and relevant ways to do that, and then we'll have some takeaways at the end. I did want to mention, if anyone had seen the part about 6 hats in the invite, not sure we're going to get to that, so if we don't, there is information in the handout afterwards. So, briefly as an introduction, my name is, again, Brad. I'm president of Adigo, and I have experience in both public and private companies, have started a number of companies myself, and so with that experience I have been in many different executive meetings, and some of them are highly effective, so that's wonderful. But quite frankly, many have not been. So we can certainly all learn, myself included, and I've learned quite a bit in putting this together. Our research staff has brought together some interesting best practices that they found. So I wish I would have known about some of these things years ago. Again, there is the chat pane, so if you have a moment, please send me a chat. Love to hear what you're curious about and things like that, and we'll make it interactive with some other questions later on. But first of all, let's just talk about executive meetings. Heck, this is the top brass within the company. It's most important. And what's your experience within your own organization? Is it dysfunction, or is it a smooth running machine that all the departments want to emulate with their own meetings? The aspect that's most critical, of course, about an executive meeting is the value of people's time. You've got the most highest paid people, strategic thinkers within the organization, and depending on how big the company is, that might be thousands of dollars per hour. Literally, you know, $20 bills burning up every single minute. So, as we say here in Colorado, not quite Peyton Manning rates, but potentially getting close, even for him. And I think the ironic thing is that these can also be the most difficult meetings. People somewhat maybe expect that these are the executives, and so they know what they're doing, they don't need any help. But quite frankly, it's a very diverse group. So you've got people from all different fields, technical, accounting, finance, people bring in very different perspectives. There's also typically quite a significant age difference within the organization, and everyone brings in quite a different personal style. So what does this mean? When you combine all of these things, well, you need to have a very fast meeting, efficient meeting. Speed is important. The organization of it is going to be critical, and really what you're going after is a highly interactive discussion. So, recommendation number one, starting early in the webinar, is utilize a facilitator. Have a coach or someone like that come in. Yes, even for the executive meetings, it's appropriate. Have them come in, whether it's once a year or every 6 months. Have someone come in and listen, and undoubtedly they'll be able to give recommendations for how to facilitate the meeting more effectively, and I'm convinced that this is just a smart, very cost-effective move for really any organization. So, what's it like in your group? Is it egos? Are there politics involved? What's the scenario? Send me a chat if you've got some horror stories or funny stories. It's always fun to share that. I know I've certainly been involved in quite a few where really all of these things have happened. Turf battles for sure. You know, it depends on if an organization is growing or constricting. That can impact a lot of these things. Some organizations, you know, they want to placate the president, and not that there's a yes man for every topic, but the degree of challenge in each other is different. And when this is not an effective meeting, really what happens is the staff within the group, but more widespread throughout the organization, is going to end up losing trust. So this is also critical for those reasons. Is the executive team purely reactive? Are they only firefighting? Some organizations, especially high-tech organizations, can sometimes fall into a scenario of competitor chasing where they're very reactive. I'm a big fan of Dilbert, and we've all seen, Dilbert loves to talk about the idea, the management, guru coming in, consulting company with the idea of the year, and then you chase down that. Really what you're hoping for, though, is alignment throughout the organization, because this is going to impact the morale and the overall culture throughout the entire organization. So if these aren't done correctly, the result can simply be a lot of dysfunction. Quite honestly, you don't want executive meetings just to be bitch sessions. This is the leadership of the organization, and there's significant financial implications, obviously, if these meetings aren't efficient, fast, and the value to all involved. So let's talk about how we can make these most effective within different types of organizations. So first of all, like many things, planning is the most important. And I like to say that in this case, cheating is encouraged. Don't go into these meetings blind. And what I mean by that is, as the executive or the person that's planning the meeting, whether it's the president or someone else, do your homework ahead of time. You want to set ground rules for the level of preparation, the expectations ahead of time, and so it's important to meet with the participants maybe a week prior, depending on if this is a monthly meeting or every other week meeting, because the important thing to focus on when everyone's together are issues that require coordination throughout the organization, whether it's new product rollouts that are going to impact marketing, have a financial implication, sales implication. Those are the things that are important to discuss when the entire team is together. Or issues might involve things that require decisions or approvals. And when those are in play, again, you want to talk about not the concept, but clarifying the trade-offs and having the criteria very clear. And these are the things that you need to facilitate ahead of time to make sure that when the group is brought together, these trade-offs are very clear. So have that discussion up front, perhaps one-on-one. Another thing is about attendees. I think there's a tremendous amount of value, people have said in research, of bringing internal guests into the meetings, not necessarily on every single meeting, but perhaps every other month. It promotes communication throughout the organization. You can have tremendous mentoring effect, and it drives expectations down throughout the organization when people see what's happening at the executive level if it's done effectively and efficiently. In terms of guests coming in from outside the organization, though, be careful. Make sure everyone's aware. Make sure those are set up ahead of time, and there's a good reason to do it. Lastly, off-sites can be very effective. Encourage that for more strategic thinking, whether it's budgeting at the end of the year or looking at new initiatives. Many companies become so busy that they forget about the value of doing an off-site with the executive team. In terms of the meeting itself, let's talk about the different types of structures. First of all, the morning is a great time to start your meeting. Many companies have a after lunch meeting, and people are already absorbed in their day. They might be missing lunch. There's just a tremendous amount of reasons to have things in the mornings. In terms of duration, we've all probably heard about executive meetings that last all day or half a day, and think for yourself how effective you are in a meeting like that, and how valuable and efficient that is for your time. So recommendations typically for best practices are 90 minutes, depending on the organization. Sure, that may stretch to 2 hours, but really that's typically considered the maximum amount of time. And if you've just got more issues to discuss, one way to get around that is to have a more frequent meeting, but rotate the topics. So you're not discussing the same, you're not getting a status update on every single thing or department on every meeting. Maybe you skip around and, every third meeting finance gives an update, for example, and that can help bring down the time for each meeting. Some of these, I hope, are obvious for most of the people attending today. Certainly you want to distribute the agenda several days in advance. Again, your ground rules and your expectations is that there's tremendous amount of preparation. And how can you prepare if you don't know what the agenda is ahead of time? We'll go through this in a little bit more detail in another slide, but focus on presentations first. If it's a status update or you're hearing from different people, do that at the beginning and then have the discussion afterwards. It's also important to capture notes of a meeting and have that done in real time. Have some type of administrative assistant participate in the meetings so that notes are up on a large monitor or screen so that everyone can see them and everyone can, that will help keep the meeting moving forward and have it be very efficient. I'll say this, I think, again later, but we're down here, committees in nonprofits are very effective, and nonprofits and some government organizations can certainly run a meeting somewhat, efficiently with Robert rules, and not all executive teams do that. So there are some ways where you can emulate that and take some good best practices from there. So, in the situation where there's a problem or a significant issue, then acknowledge it early on, but handle it offline, perhaps in a committee, unless it really does involve everyone in terms of making a decision. Again, when you have the whole executive team together, the focus should be on decisions that the company needs to make. All right, going to keep rolling. As far as the agenda itself, these are best practices that are considered relevant across many, many different types of organizations. Don't focus on getting updates from department heads in the executive meeting. There's a more effective and efficient way to do that. So 20% maximum should be of just getting updates or current status on things. There's other ways to communicate that than in an executive meeting. Some things you definitely need to have: key performance indicators. Those should be addressed monthly or quarterly, depending on your format. What's important to always focus on is the metrics. Send me a chat. Let me know how many of your organizations currently have metrics tracking your key performance indicators that you update on a regular basis, and people throughout the organization are aware of where you currently are. Hopefully you answer yes. Lisa, thanks for that input. Jim, see something, thank you. If you've got that, then you're doing very well, so that's terrific. You also want to focus on what are the different strategies within each department to support those key performance indicators, and what are the activities and initiatives for each to accomplish each of these strategies. Your terminology in your specific organization may be a little bit different, but basically what we're talking about here is what is the organization signed up to do to get accomplish the goals that are set at the executive level. And what you want to focus, I think, on is, are you meeting those accomplishments? Are you on schedule, or are things behind schedule? If you're not accomplishing your goal, then schedule may be one reason. But sometimes people forget to focus also on the impact. You might be on schedule, you might be accomplishing the activities, but they may not be having the anticipated impact that you thought 6 months ago or 12 months ago when these activities were first agreed upon. And that's why it's always critical to come back to the metrics. Are you accomplishing the metrics? That's the bottom line. And it's important to know whether it's a schedule issue or an impact issue. Second part of the agenda should be focusing on things that require coordination within the company. So before I talked about perhaps it's a product launch, perhaps you've got new software tools rolling out within the organization that touches many different departments. These are the type of things that are relevant and important to talk about, because you can verify what's happening with all the departments involved. There might be timing issues that are important to discuss as a group, and when that happens, there could be risks involved. And so these are important items to discuss. Other things might be decisions. Are you making a decision on a new R&D project that's going on and whether to continue to fund it or not? That might be a decision that the entire team is making. And the question you need to ask is the available data enough, or do you need to get more data? And focus on not just the vote, but the discussion, because the vote really can happen offline. What the value of the group is having that interactive discussion from different viewpoints and perspectives. And it's important that everyone is aware of what the risks are that are involved. You might also be discussing certain challenges that are new, whether it's a competitor or new legislation, legal environment that's changed, or something with the economy. If there's new items that people are bringing up, it likely is better to just list them out and save the problem solving for later when you have more information, the data's been gathered, and you've done that prep work of making sure that the information is clear and concise. If there are issues that do come up, conflict management, even in executive teams, is important to handle. And there's a lot of good information out there. On the bottom here, we have a reference I'd be happy to share with folks. But it's important to, I think, focus on these bottom three techniques and approaches when there are significant disagreements within the group. And what's really important is if the discussion gets heated, take a break. It's an invaluable exercise just to let people cool down for a minute, take a break, and the first thing you really want to do is just identify the scope of the issue, because likely people have different perspectives and they have different thinking about it, and that's really all you want to do as a group. Later in a different meeting, you can talk about possible solutions. Again, you'll probably need other people involved and other data collected. And so it's appropriate to do that in a separate meeting. The only thing you really need to accomplish with the executive team is understanding the scope. We talked briefly about documenting early. It's so easy to record these meetings. You can just have a one line into a conference system. They'll record it for you without any hassle at all. And also important to be taking notes that everyone can see, as we mentioned earlier. Can't stress that enough for follow-up. So we're already burned through our 20 minutes. Takeaways, want to definitely, again, emphasize utilizing a facilitator or a coach. I think people will find the value of that significant. Pre-plan on these meetings. You know, no one really ever has the time to do that, the time they'd like to have. So, you know, you might need to delegate that to some extent from the leader, but the more they can do that themselves, I think the more effective and efficient the meeting will be. Focus on areas of coordination within the different departments. That's what you want to have during these executive team meetings, and also outlining what are the trade-offs involved with different decisions that people are making. Finally, important to update on the metrics, whether it's a schedule issue or the impact of the activities that the entire company has signed up for, and whether those are relevant still to the key performance indicators. Really appreciate everyone's time, appreciate the chats people sent in. Here's my information. Be happy to send you slides or references that people, or that we have in the slides. We do this every month and really want to make it more relevant, so please send me another chat now. Let me know